What's up, everyone? Welcome to All About Your Mindset podcast, episode number 20. Let's get ready to rumble! All right, let's do it. Welcome to All About Your Mindset podcast, where it's all about discovering your greater potential and creating the life you want through the way you think. And now, your guide, Giovanni Casals. Welcome back to All About Your Mindset podcast. I'm your host, Giovanni Casals. And for today's episode, it's all about intuitive eating and movement. But before we get to that, if you have not already, please follow me on Facebook at / All About Your Mindset podcast and Instagram at _ All About Your Mindset, where I like to, sprinkle a little bit of joy, happiness, and love in your day with a few quotes and some beautiful pictures. So if you haven't already, go ahead and follow me on those. All right, enough of me rambling on. Let's get to the episode.
Hi, Giovanni.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing excellent. Glad to see we're doing this. Excited. Give me 1 second here. Get some more light maybe in here. There we go. Seeing a little bit. We're not really going to use the video, but okay. just in case. So yeah, let's just do a quick little overview of what's going to go on. Let's make sure I can hear you. Okay. So really, I would like it to flow as naturally as possible, and you may have to save me here a little bit with some questions or whatnot. But please feel free to talk about whatever just comes to you. So today we're talking about intuitive eating and movement, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. So in the beginning, I just want to I'll just ask to tell us a little bit about yourself, like what you're currently doing, coaching wise and stuff like that. And if you have like a book or something like that, you can let us know. I'll give you your website. And at the end of the interview as well, you can definitely give us your contact information so people can get a hold of you and whatnot. And yeah, because I believe, did you mention that you were in corporate before, right?
I was, yes.
And then you went to coaching because you were just kind of fed up with it, right?
Yep.
So I would love you to just talk about that. Talk about your experience, because what I find is people, when they hear your stories, they can relate, right? Because how many, and I think we even talked about this, how many of us got fed up of working at a job, no time for yourself. My girlfriend's going through it right now. Like, just, there's no time, a lot of stress and all this other stuff, right?
Yeah. So
people can relate to it. But then definitely tell us about what you're doing now, how you're helping people. And I sent the questions to you. These are just I was just kind of come up with. So if you want to steer into a different direction, please feel free to, because I really want to hear what you have to say, because you're the expert here. And I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. So we'll see.
It's supposed to be more like a conversation than a presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want, like I said, if I say something and you're like, oh, that sparks an idea for you, please, like, just roll with it and let's see where it takes. Because whatever you feel, whatever comes up in your head, like, we need to hear that, right? We need to hear for today. Yeah. And then at the very end, if you have 3 major steps that you'd like to give people to help them on their journey to start 3 action steps that they could take as soon as it's over to start their intuitive eating and movement journey, that would be great. And then at the end of it, so once we say, I'll say thank you. We'll just go silent for just a moment, and then I'll go ahead and turn off the recording.
Okay.
And then we can we'll wrap it up, you and I, after that. Yeah. Any questions before we get started?
No, but I'm going to pull up those action steps. I wrote them down somewhere, and I just want to make sure I have them in front of me because I will forget otherwise.
No, I absolutely feel you. Oh, and if you have anything like notifications or anything like that, cell phone you want to turn off.
Yeah. Do you know how to? Actually, that's probably. I don't know how to turn off them on my laptop.
What kind of laptop do you have?
Do that before. I have Windows 10 though, so I don't know if you know that.
There should. I'm assuming you're using the speakers, so turning that off will probably not sidearm with with that one. Okay. Well, no worries.
Oh, then I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm having
No, you're fine.
finding my little list here.
You are totally fine. So I'm actually really excited about this. My girlfriend and I, we CrossFit, and so we try to eat as healthy as possible, and it's an interesting topic because once people start working out, you start seeing results, and then people can like realize, oh, hey, food, nutrition, like that's the biggest part of it. So I'm excited to hear about this intuitive eating because I don't think I've heard it before. I just did a little search before this, and it sounds really interesting. So this will be really fun. And just to make sure I have everything right, it's Gene Blomo. Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect.
Blomo.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique name. My relatives came over from Italy way back when, and the name was Blomo. But of course, at that time, you were like ashamed to be Italian, so they tried to Americanize it.
Yeah.
So it got butchered.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah, well, like my last name is Casaus, but it's initially supposed to be Casados, which is from Spain, and which is really weird because like half of my aunts and uncles have Casados, and then the other half have Casaus. Yeah. And apparently the story is, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, but this is what I remember. When my grandpa joined the army, they made him change it, or he changed it himself for some reason. And so, but it's just interesting because I know so many families, right? You go to Ellis Island, if you've ever been to Ellis Island, they have that, and like where either the people bringing in the immigrants couldn't spell the last name, so they just did whatever, right? And
yeah. Or the people writing it down couldn't understand, so they just wrote down whatever they heard. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? That like changes like generations of people. It's like you can't trace back. I mean, it's difficult to trace back where your family comes from. It's insane.
Yeah.
But okay, did you find those questions or the steps? Okay.
I think I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll start here in 3, 2, 1. I'd like to welcome to the show today, Gene Blomo. We're gonna have I'm excited, obviously, because I can't even get the words out. But I'm really excited to talk about fitness and nutrition today because that's something that for me has become really important in my life. So, welcome, Gene. I'm very excited.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you today.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And so I like to get into people's stories because I just like to know where people come from, their experience, because I believe we all have a story. We all come from somewhere, and every one of us, even if you're a twin, your life is still different. And so I love just hearing where people come from. But before I get to that, how do you usually start your morning?
That's a great question because I've tried a few different things in the past. I'm definitely an early riser. Like I enjoy getting up early, and for me, most days start around 5:30 a.m.
Wow.
But unfortunately, I have to leave the house by 6:15. So that only leaves me between 45 minutes to do what I want to do. So right now, it's for me getting a good breakfast in and getting some coffee. If I do happen to wake up a little bit early, I really enjoy journaling or meditation. And those kind of come in and out of my life depending on what's going on. And I'm trying to think of anything else. Those seem to be kind of the very consistent things. And then I start work really early. Usually 7 a.m. is my first
Oh,
session.
I don't think I'm up at 7 yet. So you mentioned good breakfast. So for you, what consists of a good breakfast?
So I go through phases. I'm one of those people where I find something I like and I eat it every single day until I get sick of it and I
Yep.
change. So for a while it was yogurt with some kind of berries and granola. Lately I've been getting up a little bit earlier so I have time to make an egg on top of toast, maybe with a little bit of guacamole on there. Sometimes I have to rush out the door, so it's a banana and a protein bar. Just depends on the day.
Yeah, yeah, definitely feel you on that. Okay, and so then I would like to just let us know what you currently do, because you're a coach, correct?
Hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your practice and how you got there?
Sure. So it's been a long journey, like many people have with their careers. I currently work with small group training. So it's kind of like combining the best of both group fitness and one-on-one training. What I do is work with up to groups of 5 people, so everyone still gets a lot of one-on-one attention, and we focus on all the basics of strength training and conditioning. So we do a lot of things like squats and deadlifts and push-ups, pull-ups, and then at the end we like to do some fun kind of heart rate training. So either jumping on the ergonomic rower for some rowing sprints, or we could do some battle ropes or med ball slams. Sometimes I'll pull out my boxing gloves and have people do a little boxing practice. Just something to get the heart rate going.
Yeah. Oh, so just a bunch of different stuff combined.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, mentioned my girlfriend and I, we do CrossFit. So, I mean, that's kind of similar to that. Maybe not as much weights. It sounds like though.
So CrossFit is a blend of a lot of different types of exercises. So it's similar to what I do. I generally do not teach Olympic style weightlifting with my clients. For the ones who are really interested in it, I'll do it. But I generally don't do the Olympic lifts and some of the other movements that I find take a lot more skill to practice. Most
Yeah.
of my clients are really just looking for simple but effective.
Okay. Nice. And so, how did you get into coaching? So we kind of talked a little bit. You said you were in the corporate realm. What kind of got you to the point of just be like, all right, I'm done. I'm out. Who's coming with me?
Yeah. So in college, I studied journalism and business. And for a long time, I really thought that was going to be my path, something in writing. And so out of college, I worked for a publishing company, which was a really, really great experience. And I got to work with authors. I got to help develop content it was an educational publisher. And it was great in a lot of ways to be able to help people with their education. But the downside was when you work for a corporation, you kind of become a drone. And I eventually got into a department where I helped to essentially outsource a lot of the work that our company was doing to companies in India and elsewhere. And it made me realize that so much of the work that we were doing could be done by other people. And it made me realize that I wanted to do something that no one else could do, or that no one else could do like me. Mm-hmm. And when I wasn't at my job, I started doing kickboxing. I actually did Tai Bo, and I certified with Billy Blanks, which was such a cool experience. And so a lot of my friends and coworkers were telling me, that I was inspiring them to take up fitness and help. I would start helping them to just encourage them. And they started telling me things like, yeah, you should become a coach. You should learn how to be a personal trainer and see where that takes you. And so I did. I started reading about it and thinking about it. And all in all, it took me about 2 years to really make the decision to do it. And I saved up money and I made sure I had a little bit of savings in the bank account before I took a leap of faith. And I worked for a few years at Equinox. Okay. It's a higher end gym, and really, really great education there to help me with that dive into a totally new career. So once I did that, I started feeling like, wow, this is really what I'm meant for, is being able to work with people in a very inspirational, uplifting way. And even after that, I decided to change yet again by leaving Equinox and going off on my own, which is a whole other adventure in terms of building your own business and no longer being someone else's employee. So I've taken all of those experiences and really tried to help other people to find whatever they're passionate about and really follow that as much as they can.
Excellent. And what was your, how did you prepare your mindset? Because you said, like, it took up to 2 years for you to take that leap of faith. And this podcast is all about the mindset. So yeah. What did you do to prepare yourself? Or was it just a slow progression of just getting up to that point? It's like, all right, I have the money saved. It's time to pull the trigger. Because some people, they'll save the money, they'll do everything, but they never pull the trigger. They're like, oh no, this has got to be perfect, or this has to happen, or this or this or this. So What was it for you that was just like, all right, I got the money, we're doing this?
Well, it was like that. I did tell myself it has to be perfect, or I have to have this, and this in place, or I'm just waiting to get good at this other thing, and that's why it took 2 years. And I don't regret that, because I was at that point in a really good position to do it and do it 100%. So I was able to commit to it, whereas a lot of the other people who got hired around the same time I did, if they were trying to still work at another job, or they had people depending on them, or they were in other situations, they unfortunately didn't make it. They had to leave training and go back and do something else, because that job is 100% commission. So if you're not available and you're not willing to essentially take on anyone, you're probably going to fail. So I'm glad I did wait that long, because by then I was really hungry for it and I was really willing to just go on and do it. But the mindset shift for me really was, if I don't do this now, I never will. Because, I wasn't married. I didn't have a mortgage to pay. I don't have kids. So I knew it was like, well, those things may happen down the road, and it will be less likely that I'll take a risk. So if I'm going to take a risk, I might as well do it now.
Absolutely. Awesome. And so what were some of your biggest limiting beliefs that you had at that moment? And then what was the breakthrough that you had?
Biggest limiting beliefs. I really didn't think that, well, there's a few things. I wasn't sure whether I could handle living on a commission basis. So the uncertainty was really scary to me. The uncertainty of getting clients or not getting clients, or getting clients and then losing all your clients. That was really, really scary. Looking back on it now, though, the publishing company I worked for went through bankruptcy and laid off a bunch of people. So now I see that there's no certainty anywhere at any point. So you can have a great job at a big company, but who's to say that that company will exist tomorrow? So in a lot of ways, working for myself has made me more stable, because I know I can depend on myself to get business and to be consistent and to do the work. And then the other thing was, frankly, just a personal lack of confidence. I didn't feel like I looked like a personal trainer, quote unquote. And that's because our media is full of images of what a personal trainer, quote unquote, should look like. So, super lean, super fit, eats perfectly works out every single day. And I'll tell you something, I've yet to find a personal trainer who fulfills all of those things. There's a lot of personal trainers out there who absolutely they do the work and they work hard at having great looking bodies, or what our media considers great looking bodies, but they may be doing it at a high cost to other areas of their life, for example. Or, you know, you can have someone with really awesome genetics who eats like crap, but they still have a six pack.
I know some people like that.
So just by entering the field and seeing that everyone has their own specialty, everyone has their own approach, and everyone's human, really helped me realize that as long as you have a belief and a consistency with movement and being able to teach that movement, you know, you don't have to look a certain way to be a personal trainer.
Excellent. I love that because I'm a photographer by trade. That's what my business is initially. And you see it so much, like you said about media, like what not just a personal trainer should look like, but what every human should look like, right? So I do professional headshots for entrepreneurs and professionals, and when I have somebody come in, like usually one of the first things people say is like, "Oh, I'm not photogenic," or "I don't like my photo taken," or "I want to lose weight before I get my photo taken." There's always some kind of conscious thing in their head, in the back of their mind. They don't like it, or when they see the photo and there's like, "Oh, I don't like this about myself," or can you slim my face down a little bit, and like all this stuff. And so it's huge what media puts out there and what people think we should really look like. And I'm no different. Like, 'cause I look in the magazines, I'll see like a guy, like, you know, just like ripped six pack. I'm like, man, I wish I had that kind of six pack, or I wish I had a six pack. I wish I had a two pack, you know? But it's crazy because then you start seeing it and it gets normalized, right? And like you had mentioned, some of them might have like these perfect bodies that we see, but what are they doing to their body? Because I know a lot of like bodybuilders and stuff, right? To prep for their shows, they do this crazy stuff to their body to look as lean and defined as possible. But I've heard it does damage to their bodies. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And not only damage to their bodies, but I mean, just think about maybe not damage, but the sacrifice you have to make in the rest of your life. So if you're in the gym 2 hours a day, then that means you're not either at your job or with your family or with your friends. So, you know, with everything in life, when you make a choice to spend time on something, it means you're spending time away from something else. So even if you're not like competing, the time you spend at the gym or food prepping, meal prepping, whatever you want to call it, it all takes away from other areas, which is also why it's hard for people to make changes, because it does mean you have to sacrifice something. So that's up to an individual to determine what's right for them. So for the people who are doing the professional bodybuilding, maybe that's, you know, what they truly love in life, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So fitness and health is obviously a huge topic in the United States. I don't know how big the actual industry is of it, but I imagine it's huge because of the before mentioned magazines, all over the internet, New Year's resolutions, right? A lot of people, New Year's resolution is, I want to lose weight, or I want to look a certain way. Can you tell us how the mindset starts to play into like those resolutions, or just like when somebody finally is like, oh, I want to lose weight, because so many people say they want to lose weight, they start out and then they fall off, right? Are there any common things that you see that are stopping people from reaching those goals in losing weight or gaining strength or whatever it may be?
Yeah, so there's a lot of layers here, and what is really important to do is examine why those are your goals. So much like other personal trainers, I have a lot of clients that want to lose weight. And if you just ask a few times, a few layers down why, you'll get a few different answers. The most common answer I get at this point is for health. So a lot of my clients are a little bit older, maybe in their 40s and up, and they're no longer looking to get a six-pack or look good in a bikini or anything like that. Well, they say that. I think a lot of people secretly maybe wish that, but that's no longer their top priority. For most people, it's health. And so if you look at a lot of scientific literature, there is correlation between weight and health, but we haven't quite figured out whether there is causation between weight and health. So in other words, your weight is not the defining factor of how healthy you are. So that said, weight in and of itself is not a great goal to achieve. Health is a great goal to achieve, and health can be defined physically, but it can also be defined mentally and emotionally too. So,
yeah, absolutely.
My specific training is in physical health and getting people moving and active, so I can absolutely help with that. But a lot of my clients are looking to actually feel better about themselves, or feel emotionally better. So things like weight loss may give you a quick fix, but if you already are lacking in confidence, that's not going to solve it. So it could be that that's a better journey to go on, maybe with a therapist, okay, than with a personal trainer. That said, you can feel a lot better mentally if you are being active. So instead of having my clients focus on weight loss, I really have them focus on performance and health markers. So on the health markers side, that would be like going to your doctor regularly and getting your blood pressure and your blood work checked so that you can make sure that you're within a healthy range there, and either work on that through medication or see whether changes in your movement and your eating habits can have an effect on that. And then also looking at performance, that can be things like seeing how much weight you can lift or seeing how quickly you can run a mile. So working on improving how you move, or maybe it's getting rid of pain somewhere. So working on those types of indicators I find are much more powerful because they allow you to become more consistent with working out and not focus on weight, which is not as controllable as we think it is.
Interesting. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Sure. So looking at intuitive eating, which is a really, really great resource. It's a book written by two registered dietitians, Evelyn, I want to make sure I say their names here, Evelyn Tribole and Elise Reich. I highly, highly recommend that book. So basically the premise is that we likely have a set point in terms of our weight, and if we can learn to listen to our bodies and also listen to our knowledge in nutrition a little bit, we can find that set point and easily stay at that set point without too much change. So a lot of us believe that our weight should be at a certain number, and our bodies might have a different idea. And our bodies will do everything in its power to get to the number that makes sense for our bodies. And what happens is when we try to either diet down or diet up, if you're trying to gain weight, our set point starts to shift. And so our body will either speed up or slow down our metabolism, send us more hunger cues or less hunger cues. in order to try to bring us back. But over time, if you keep messing with that and dieting away from that, our bodies sort of learn how to not listen anymore. And unfortunately, you can get away from that set point further and further. And that explains why we might have a couple people in our lives who have never dieted before, and maybe they don't do any kind of strenuous exercise, but they've essentially remained at the same exact weight since maybe high school or college. So, Giovanni, do you have anyone like that in your life? Can you think of anyone like that?
That actually is me. I have roughly weighed 145 pounds since high school.
So, have you been working super hard at tracking your calories or measuring your food or anything like that?
I don't. We food prep. And on Sunday, so actually yesterday we do like chicken and some meats, and we food prep for the week. And so I don't eat out as often, but I definitely do not count calories. I don't weigh anything. I would lose my mind if I had to do that.
So on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's a lot of people that are currently counting calories and weighing and measuring, and they can't conceive of an existence where they don't have to do that. And here's the thing, our bodies are really smart and they know exactly what we need. We just tend not to trust them and not to listen to them. So intuitive eating is all about getting back in touch with what our bodies are saying and really listening to that and following through with that. So that's things like listening to your hunger cues, listening to your fullness cues, and actually allowing yourself to eat sort of what some people would call cheat foods. They like to call it play foods in intuitive eating. Mm-hmm. And that way you never feel restricted or deprived, but you do allow your body to eat the foods that make it feel its best. And then on the other side of that is intuitive movement. So that would be like listening to your body when it wants to get up and move, you do that. And then on days when it doesn't want to get up and move, you respect that as well. And we see people on different ends of those spectrums too, is that, sitting all day, every day, when our bodies do want to be in movement, if we're just ignoring those cues all the time, we're ratcheting down further and further and further away from trust in our bodies. Or if you have any friends that maybe work out without ever allowing rest, they might get a lot of injuries or things happening to them that maybe they wouldn't get if they actually listened to their bodies and allowed for some rest.
Absolutely. Can you expand a little more on how we can listen to our bodies a little bit better? I know listening is hard for a lot of people just in a conversation. So how do we listen better to our bodies? Because you're right. It's like it always nags there, but we kind of just shut it off. Like, oh, whatever, body. I want to eat all of these hamburgers, this double Whopper or whatever the heck it is. How is there tools or tips we can start to use to be like, oh, hey, my body's saying something. Let's listen up and see what it's saying. Yeah.
So the best thing to do is to eat as much as you can distraction free. So that means putting down the cell phone, putting away the laptop, getting yourself away from the TV, and possibly even not having really intense conversations while you're eating. So maybe that's really hard for you to do. I know it's hard for a lot of people to do, including me. But just having at least 1 or 2 meals a day where you're not distracted by something else.
And so what does that do, not being distracted? What does that do for us?
It really forces you to think about the fact that you're eating. And the fact that you have a body, and the fact that you're tasting things and chewing and swallowing and doing all the things required to eat and assimilate food. So what happens is if you're distracted, you don't really get to taste the food. You don't get to focus on how much you need to chew it before you swallow it. You don't notice the shift of the very subtle shift from hunger to fullness. So something that I've really realized over the past year of doing this is, for me personally, it takes a lot of food, a volume of food, to feel expansion fullness in my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
But if I get to that point, then I'm overly full. So instead of focusing on how full my stomach feels, I focus on the taste of the food. And there's this point at which during a meal, the taste doesn't taste as good. Like there will be one bite where it tastes good, and then the next bite it's like, not quite as satisfying. And that's when I know I'm full. So if you can't, you won't be able to I won't be able to recognize that if I'm distracted doing something else. So for other people, maybe that satisfaction point is when they feel something in their stomach, or when, something in their throat. Everyone has a different kind of fullness point, but you have to be undistracted in order to recognize that. So that's really the easiest way to tune into that. The other way that has been really helpful for me personally is doing a body scan meditation. And I use the John Kabat-Zinn method. So he did mindfulness-based stress reduction classes, and there's a body scan meditation in there. And I noticed it's quite long. It's like 45 minutes. And I noticed when I did it, I had all of these really pent-up emotions in different areas of my body. And it really would almost anger me and frustrate me to just sit still and pay attention to different areas of my body. And it made me realize that if we don't accept and allow emotion to kind of happen in these different areas of our bodies, we tend to use things to distract from that discomfort. So it could be things like food, or pushing ourselves beyond maximum in workouts and things like that.
That's really interesting, because usually when we go out to eat, or for our food prep, I normally don't get full, right? So it's stuff that we've created, we made ourselves. We know what's in it. But when we go out to eat, and it's usually on the weekend, because after a week of eating the same two meals, you get bored with it. And so we go out to eat, and then it's like we love hamburgers, right? Who doesn't love hamburgers? We eat hamburgers, and then the fries, and then all of a sudden when we're done, because you don't put it down, you're just eating, you're talking, you're distracted, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm stuffed, I can't move, and then I hate it, and I'm like, I don't feel disgusted, but I feel icky. I'm just like, oh, this is way too much food. And then for the next half hour or so, I'm just like, oh, blah, blah. So that's really interesting to just eat with no distractions, because I think that would solve or at least my problem of when we go out to eat, eating too much, because I'm just kind of in conversation, we're just eating, and then just keep going because it tastes delicious, right? And then I've never even noticed if something doesn't taste as good as the first few bites, and just stopping and that's really intriguing to me. I'm gonna try it this week if we go out and eat.
I challenge you too, Giovanni, to do the same thing with your prepped meals.
Okay.
Because what I've noticed about that, and I used to do a lot of food prep too. I still do, but not as rigidly as I used to. Because what I find is that people will do the food prep, and in their heads, they think, well, this is perfectly portioned. And then they essentially inhale the food without thinking about it. And it's just as mindless as eating a hamburger and fries without thinking about it, right? So what if some days you're not that hungry and you ate everything in your food prep meal just because it was there? Or alternatively, maybe you eat it and it's not enough food. You're still hungry. You're not satisfied. That's important to recognize too, and to listen to your body and respect your body, and understand that maybe you haven't given it what it needs, or maybe you kept going when your body was telling you to stop.
And is there a difference between the? I mean, I think there is, but I would love to get your opinion, your viewpoint on it, from the homemade food to obviously like restaurants or I would say fast food as well, right? Like the quality is different. Does that matter in the intuitive eating?
Absolutely. So the first step of intuitive eating is getting away from the diet mentality. So if you've been dieting for a long period of time, restricting calories or restricting the types of foods that you're eating or restricting when you're eating, the first step is to let go of those restrictions. And for most people, they'll go through a phase where they go a little bit overboard on all those foods, or the amount of foods that they're eating that they used to not allow themselves to eat. So that's really common, is that first stage. But what happens after, if you can get uncomfortable with that and get through that first stage, what happens next is that you start realizing that if you just allow yourself to eat what you want when you want it, those foods no longer have power over you. So for people out there who say things like, well, I can't keep cookies in the house, or if it's here, I'm just going to eat them all, or I can't have just one slice of pizza, I need all the pizza. This is a really great resource, because we tend to think that it's because there's something wrong with us. Like, I used to think that I had this insatiable appetite and no amount of food could satisfy me. But ever since doing intuitive eating, I really couldn't care less if there's a donut on a table. If I'm not hungry, or if I don't really feel like it, it has no power over me. So to go from that place where I thought, if I have one donut, I'm going to have 6 donuts, to now being able to pass it up, that's huge. That's really powerful.
Absolutely. And so you're just saying, so allowing yourself to do that, to have that donut, and the stuff you mentioned before, being distraction free and all that stuff, that by doing those things, you no longer will like crave it. So I know it's like when you tell a kid not to do something, they're going to do it because you told them not to do it.
Exactly. It's not so much that you don't crave it. I still crave it, but I also recognize, like, if I have a donut for breakfast, I don't feel really good. I don't feel very satisfied. I'm hungry again in 20 minutes. So I mean, it doesn't even sound appetizing. Now, if I have a smaller I don't even want to say nutritious, but a well-balanced meal with protein and fat and carbohydrates, but it was on the smaller side and I'm still a little hungry and I feel like something sweet, sure, donut sounds great, because I know it's just kind of an extra thing, but it's not, I know that it won't satisfy the nutritional side and the energetic side that my body needs. It will satisfy an emotional need, maybe, that only a donut can offer me in that moment.
Absolutely. So how would somebody start? So once we have this kind of the mindset almost of it, right? Being distraction free, tasting the food, and then being aware of your fullness point.
Yeah.
Is there something else, like, would you still suggest the food prep for people who in the beginning? Just because, like, I'm thinking of, like, I'm exactly what you just said. Like, we don't keep, like, my girlfriend and I, we don't keep bread in the house because we love bread, right? And for her, like, her diet, it's a little bit different than mine, right? So I can eat bread and, like, it doesn't affect me as much as far as, like, weight gain or anything like that. So, but we keep it out of the house just because I can seriously have, like, toast every single day and just, like, stuff my face with it.
Yeah.
So for people who have I don't know, maybe struggled in the past
Yeah.
with, weight gain and all this other stuff, would you still recommend kind of doing some kind of food prep in the beginning just to kind of, I don't know, quote unquote, like detox their body from like their body and their mindset of, stopping themselves from eating everything in sight, right? Sugary, like you said, going overboard with that stuff.
No, I don't recommend food prep
Okay.
unless it is a time saver and it allows you to have stuff on hand that maybe you normally wouldn't. I don't think that portion control or restricting what you eat or even trying to change the time of day that you're eating really works in the long run if you're not listening to your body.
Mm-hmm.
So if you find that a certain amount of food and a certain type of food works really well for you and you feel good and it tastes good and it satisfies you, that is intuitive eating. That means you're on the right track. If you're doing it because a diet tells you to do it,
Mm-hmm.
then you're not listening to your body. So what can be really helpful is tackling one type of food at a time. And maybe you can call it a fear food if you want. So let's say your fear food is bread. So what you can do is buy 1 or 2 loaves of bread. And maybe the first day or two, you eat like 6 slices of bread, right? Because you haven't allowed yourself to eat bread in such a long time. Mm. And then maybe after a few days, you're like, okay, I'm getting kind of sick of bread, but I still want it because it's here. So you finish off the loaf. As soon as you finish off that loaf, buy it again. So the goal is to get it out of your system in a way, but it's more getting it out of your mind. Because once you realize that you're not restricting yourself anymore, you will be able to eat it when you want it. If you're also paying attention to how your body feels, you may find that bread either feels really good or maybe it doesn't feel so good. So if you're truly paying attention and tapping into how your body's feeling, you'll be able to make that determination. And you also might find out that there's some foods that just, you don't even like it. There have been a few foods like that. I'm trying to think of one off, actually chocolate. So I've always thought that I really loved chocolate, but plain chocolate, it actually, when I sit down and eat it, it doesn't really satisfy me. So there might be a few foods that when you really sit down and allow yourself to have it, you find like, maybe this isn't really what I like. So for people who fear like doing everything at once, maybe just picking one thing at a time and actually keeping it in your house and allowing yourself to see, maybe I don't want chocolate cake 3 times a day, every day. Maybe you don't. Because when I tell people this, like, you just eat whatever you want when you want it, people will say like, well, then I would just eat chocolate cake all day. And I said, yeah, you probably will for the first few days. And then you'll realize it's really not that satisfying and you'll probably stop eating it.
It's like the dream of being a kid, right? Just having dessert like for every single meal.
Yeah. But if you're paying attention to your body, I can almost guarantee that after a certain period of time, it's not going to sound as appealing anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like if you, I don't know, if you stop something, you stop yourself from doing something, whatever it may be, right? And then you just like go overboard with it and just keep doing it every single day. And you're eventually going to get sick of it. Just like,
yeah,
we need variety, right? It's like if you
exactly
just went, I don't know, I can't come up with an example, but if you just overload yourself, you're just gonna be like, all right, I'm done. I want something different. And then your body will be like, hey man, I need some nutrients here. Like this cake isn't doing anything.
Exactly. Yep. So the main thing that prevents people from truly embracing that strategy is fear of weight gain. And it's really important to examine that fear closely. And that's something that I highly recommend maybe doing with a trained professional, because it can bring up a lot of really intense emotions for people. There's so many people out there that have such deep-seated fears and anxieties about their bodies. We live in a fat-phobic society. We equate being fat or overweight with laziness, stupidity, a lot of negative things, and it's simply not the case. So dealing with that fear of gaining weight can be really powerful, and overcoming that. And hearkening back to the very beginning of our conversation where I said weight does not equate to health, that can be one way to overcome that fear, is that having a really strong social connection, having good emotional health, having good mental health is also an important part of overall physical health. And so many of us are torturing ourselves and spending way too much of our time and energy and mindset on what we look like, that we don't have time to do all of these other important things in life. So if we start to examine, why am I spending so much time afraid of gaining weight when I could be spending time with my family or working on my business or doing something positive in my community, we can actually shift away from all of that anxiety around food and eating and exercise.
That's amazing. I've enjoyed this so much, and we're getting close to the end of our time here. It's really interesting because, like I said, I've never heard of the intuitive eating before talking with you, and it makes sense, and it makes sense of the fears of people might have, and it brings into light as well as our mindset around food and our mindset around the nutrition and everything else, and our health and everything on that. So before we leave here, what are your 3 action steps we can take today to have a better nutritious life?
Okay, so I think the first thing is to, it sounds really overwhelming, but it's really true, and that is to question everything you think you know about weight and health. So again, media and friends, family, they all tell us that weight is equivalent to health, and that is not true. It's more important that you take steps in your daily life, getting movement, getting foods that help you feel energetic and positive and happy and satisfied, than it is to weigh a certain amount. The second thing is self-compassion. So coming from a place of non-judgmental curiosity, and that really plays into that eating undistracted. So looking at, how you're feeling while you're eating and how you're feeling before and after you're eating too. Why are you choosing the foods that you are, and how does that affect you both physically and mentally and emotionally? And then the third step is, I really recommend people who follow the intuitive eating concept to avoid and then learn to be compassionate, I guess is the right term, with people who engage in diet talk. So diet talk is anything that promotes that idea that weight equals health, or promotes the idea that you need to shame yourself into changing your diet or your exercise habits. So that's anything that says that being fat is bad or scary or horrible or anything like that. And then anything that says that a certain weight or a certain body size or shape is not acceptable. So avoiding those types of messages either on social media or from your friends and family. So avoiding them at first and then learning to accept them, that they're there and you can do your part to fight against them eventually.
Excellent. So just to recap, we have question everything you know about health. Which is a small little task. Just
weight. I should say weight and health.
Weight and health. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Weight and health, and then 2, self-compassion, which I think is absolutely great when it comes to this realm of our mindset. And then the third one is to, in the beginning, avoid any of the talk about the current styles of weight loss and things of that nature, and then afterwards embrace it, and just not embrace it, but be aware that it's out there, and
find your own way.
Find your own way. Perfect. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. I really can't wait to share with people. Like, do you guys know about this?
Yeah, they'll think you're crazy at first.
People already think I'm crazy, so it's nothing's really different. But it's interesting because it's just something different, and it is completely goes against what society and media is telling us, right?
Yeah. And basically, society. Sorry to interrupt. No, society and the media tells us that our bodies are not to be trusted. That we have to ignore our hunger and our fullness cues because those cues are evil, and they'll only tell us to lay on the couch and eat bonbons all day. And we know that's not true. If you really ask yourself if laying on the couch and eating bonbons all day, every day for the rest of your life sounds good, everyone's going to tell you no. Maybe for a day or two, but not for the rest of your life. Eventually, you're going to want a salad and a walk outside, right? So if we truly listen to the media, it would be saying that we have to look at our Fitbit and we have to weigh and measure every single thing that goes into our mouths. And that's not true. Our bodies know exactly what we need, but it's really challenging to get back in touch with that because the media is telling us to not trust ourselves all the time.
Absolutely. Well, Jean, thank you so much. And actually, how can we find you on the interwebs, wherever you may be?
Really easy to find me on Instagram and Facebook, Jean, Jean, Blomo, Blomo. And I also have my own website, jeanblomo.com/blog. Perfect.
And so all you guys listening out there, if you found this interesting, which I know you have because you're listening to me and I find everything interesting, please check her out. Reach out to her if you have any questions, anything like that. Jean, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. Thank you for opening my mind and everything else. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope you got some great value out of today's episode. And if you happen to check out or try some of the intuitive eating and movement, let me know at Facebook at /All About Your Mindset podcast, or on Instagram. Let me know how it goes, what you struggled with, what you like about it, and what not. But before we end today's episode, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor, myself, Photography by Giovanni, specializing in headshots for professionals, entrepreneurs, and business folks alike. You can find me at photographybygiovanni.com. Giovanni is J-O, V as in Victor, A-N-N-I. Until next time, make it a great day. Thank you once again for listening to All About Your Mindset podcast. You can find us at www.allaboutyourmindset.com.